Oh, god damn it. Is he still mad about that?
He is, but this is about the ranger. He found out he doesn't get any loot from the adventuring.
Oh.
Yep. Terrible compensation packages. Just one of the many problems with the Beastmaster Ranger we'll be addressing in today's episode.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Unqualified Experts. I'm your host, Braden Gardner.
I'm your corrupt overlord, Shane Dayton.
And like we mentioned earlier, today we're going to talk about what is probably the most maligned class in the Player's Handbook for 5th edition D&D.
Probably.
Yeah, well, I'm being charitable. The Ranger's Beastmaster.
Yeah, and here's the thing. Despite its issues, I do love the Ranger class because of the stories, because it's one of those classes I just empathize with, I really relate to. First campaign I ever did of D&D, played the Ranger. But you can say redeemable things about the other classes of Ranger. The Beastmaster in 5th edition is just so bad right now, and there's just no other way around it. So, with your permission, I would like to begin the ranting before we go to how to fix it.
By all means, you're the one with personal experience playing this dumpster fire of a class, so go ahead.
Well, we'll start with what's actually in the book, because it does seem to hit that. 3rd level, you get a Beast Companion, and the limitations are immediate. It must be a challenge rating of 1/4 or lower. You have the appendix. You get to add your proficiency to the AC, attack rolls, and damage rolls, which, right off the bat, at that point, you're looking at an animal companion that will be wiped out by the first fireball you run across at level 3. And possibly the first lightning bolt. And depending on what you choose, possibly the first time you trip and fall, because it's just not good. The beast obeys your commands as best it can. It takes turn on your initiative. And then right away on your turn, you can verbally command it to move, which is the only time it doesn't require an action. But then if you want to do anything, you must take your action to tell it to attack. And right off the bat, you're just giving up so much for so little return in many cases. And it just doesn't get better. Once you have the extra attack feature, it's a little bit mitigated because you don't have to use the whole action. You can use one of your attacks to tell the beast attack, and then you can use your other attack on the enemy. But even then, you have to use commands to tell it to dash, to disengage, to dodge. And there's so much it doesn't get better. When traveling through your favorite terrain with the beast, you can move stealthily at a normal pace. Depending on how you build your ranger, you can do that anyway. So, I mean, it's kind of hard to get excited about that.
Yeah, that's fair.
The beast dies, you can obtain another one. You only have to spend 8 hours magically bonding with another beast that is not hostile to you.
Another beast that's going to keel over the instant you come across another fireball? Because those aren't common in D&D.
Yup. So, once again, that can be a hard pass. You have to wait all the way to level 7 to get exceptional training. Once again, you must use your bonus action, which in the Ranger class actually is a big deal. This isn't a class where the bonus action doesn't mean anything. The Ranger can be very effective using their bonus action depending on the build, the spells you want to cast. Hello everyone who uses Hunter's Mark, which would be every single Ranger out there. And you are giving that up just so you can command your beast to not attack, but to run, disengage, dodge, because apparently it's too stupid to dodge without you telling it to, or to help.
Okay.
Yup. Bestial Fury, 11th level. Your beast companion can make 2 attacks.
Wait, doesn't every PC class that gets the extra attack feature get that at level 5?
Yup.
Okay.
Okay, at 15th, you could share spells. When you target yourself, you can also affect your beast companion if it's within 30 feet. At first glance, that seems okay. Here is the problem. Aside from some low-level healing spells, which a little bit of healing, which your beast companion will definitely need, almost all the ranger spells that are useful you cast on yourself, you can cast on companions or a circle around you anyway. Meaning you're just doubling up on what you'd already do. Second level, you can cast Pass Without a Trace, so you don't need to specifically choose your beast companion. It's just one of those where it sounds good until you look at what the ranger will actually use, and you realize, oh, you're telling me at level 15 I can do what I was doing anyway since level 3. Thanks.
Right.
Helpful.
Alright.
And that was their level by level. For my general rant, right out of the gate. What do you think of when you think of Beastmaster? I think of someone who's mastered the ability to talk to beasts.
Yeah, and not just talk to them, but train them and work with them as they come up in the wild. And
so,
druid light.
A forest gnome has the ability to talk to animals. You're not going to edit this out, are you?
I mean...
I can go without a phone call for 3 weeks, and then, I would apologize, but this is kind of the level of professionalism you expect from me out at this point. There's really no way I can bribe you to edit this out, is there?
We'll talk about it in post.
From level 1, a forest gnome can talk to animals. Druids have a natural connection that allows them to do the same. That makes sense. The nature cleric has the ability to choose different communications. So how does the beast master not have speak with animals or animal friendship as part of the class? That makes no sense whatsoever.
Wait, do they get bonus spells at all?
No.
Why?
Yeah. It just... Those aren't even game-breaking things. Like, if you were concerned about Beastmaster becoming too strong, it's not because of an animal friendship spell. And you can't even argue something like, oh, they'd spam that. Animal friendship's a 24-hour spell anyway. I mean, just... if you're a Beastmaster, it's hard to see to me how a ranger that capable of a deep bond can't make that connection. They're kind of the only nature class that doesn't get anything in that way. Oh.
So what do they get to mitigate the absolute loss of damage compared to something like the Hunter or the awesome features of something like the Gloomstalker from Xanathars? Anything?
No, not really. They get some things. I mean, I will say this. You start out with a super weak animal companion. They do level up, which makes sense. They should be getting more hit points. They should be able to do things, but here's the problem. They don't level up attributes. They level up hit points. You get to add your proficiency bonus. And at first glance, that doesn't sound bad, but they're underpowered to start with, and it keeps getting worse. Because of those early restrictions, Brownie here, for example, good bear. Good solid pick for Beastmaster Ranger. That's an 11 AC when you get him, with 20 hit points.
Hell, I think I could take him.
Yes, which means he is squishier. Your bear is squishier than your wizard in all likelihood. And by level 20, the max for him with proficiency is an AC of 17, which means he is definitely squishier than your wizard who has spells at that point. And his max hit points is going to be 80.
That might not be squishier than the wizard.
Maybe not.
Maybe.
But at level 20, you can kiss your bear goodbye after round 1 of that boss fight.
Yeah.
Maybe round 2. Otherwise, you're supposed to be the ranger with an animal companion who can give you flanking, who can't be in the front line lest he gets killed. It's just, it's a mess. And this is the rant starts out because we kind of have to lead into, well, how do you start fixing it? And I don't know if there's a Pathfinder versus D&D argument the way there is Star Trek versus Star Wars, but Pathfinder gives us a good first option on how to deal with this. In my one Pathfinder campaign, I wasn't even a druid or a ranger. I was a barbarian who went into Oracle, got a pet companion who had 3 levels, but in Pathfinder, you only get the hit points. Your animal companion actually gets feats and features, which meant my 3rd level camel was more effective than most level 20 animal companions in 5e. That's not a good thing, but it does show you how to start fixing it.
Yeah, no kidding. The fact that you can't give your animal companion feats or stat boosts or anything like that in the base player's handbook, that's just weak. And like you mentioned, having the choice of either the animal's base hit points are 4 times your ranger level is laughable at pretty much every level of play.
Yeah, it's not a lot, especially since you have such a restrictive pool to start. And it's just kind of a side note, even if you try to min-max this, your best pet companions are basically, some people figured out, the giant frog or the giant spider. Now, from a play standpoint, that's actually pretty cool. I would love, if I was going to have to play a Beastmaster Ranger, sorry, Brownie, screw the conventional bear, the wolves, I want a giant frog or a giant spider. I want something weird like that. But there is no way going in cold. Those are going to be your natural choices. You don't know those are your best choices. And so you're just kind of left with all the weakest parts of the Ranger class. With, it seems like almost an obsessiveness with not overpowering an already underpowered class. And I think that's kind of how you end up with this mess. So, Braden, how do we even begin to start fixing this?
Well, as far as the Beastmaster base class is concerned, there isn't really a lot to work with in the player's handbook to try and fix what's already basically been broken. So what I did is I went and took a look at some of the Unearthed Arcana classes, kind of see how they handle some of the really obvious shortcomings that the Beastmaster has, and I used a lot of those ideas to kind of revamp how the Beastmaster is handled overall, as well as at most of the critical levels where you would receive benefits, to kind of try and keep the same general framework that the authors intended without necessarily clear-cutting it and starting from the ground up. So, to kind of address one of the most immediate problems with the Beastmaster right out the gate, I would recommend increasing the hit point maximum to either the Beast's maximum or 6 times your Ranger level instead of 4, just to give them that extra buffer against AoE spellcasters, because they are prevalent, especially as you start to advance in levels. And this idea that you don't even get to have your beast take a turn because they're wizard through a chain lightning is just ridiculous.
Oh, and for fans of Critical Role, if you watch the first campaign, this actually happened multiple times in those episodes. There was just a certain point where the bear companion couldn't take the damage, and in that case, they even had homebrew stuff like armor for trinket. So, even with armor and extra hit points, it wasn't working around level 12 or 13.
And that's kind of a bummer, because if you're giving up the raw damage of something like the Hunter or the Horizon Stalker, you should be getting something comparable in return, not a liability that's going to keel over anytime a fight breaks out among any level of challenge.
And it takes the fun out being a Beastmaster. If you're wanting to be a Beastmaster Ranger, and then halfway through the campaign you can pretty much count on your animal companion dying in round 1 all the time, it really kind of sucks the air out of it, in my opinion.
I agree. It's just, there's no point in taking it because you're not getting to exercise the benefits of the class.
Yep.
Additionally, to kind of address the CR issues with your actual pool of animal companions, my recommendation would be to allow the ranger to pull from a pool of beasts that are equal to a quarter of their ranger level, rounded down. So, giving access to something CR half, for example, when you get your beast at CR at level 3, and then having the ability to scale it up to as high as a level 5 beast at level 20, which will give you access to most of the cool dinosaurs, including the Triceratops, which can be an absolute tank under normal conditions. And if you're coming across a humanoid, you got some good opportunities for some intimidation and other shenanigans when you're basically barreling down on them with a Triceratops.
It's a good system, but we have dinosaurs come up a lot in our campaign.
Dinosaurs are awesome.
They are very cool.
And then beyond that, I also have a few thoughts for the 7th, 11th, and 15th levels of the Beastmaster, just because the perks that you receive at those levels are just weak.
So bad.
So, at 7th level, in addition to the benefits that are already outlined, my recommendation would be moving up when your beast gets access to multi-attack, since to order them to attack anyway, you're giving up your extra attack, so you might as well get 3 attacks in like you should, especially since the monk gets access to Flurry of Blows and has the ability to attack 4 times, 2 levels earlier. I don't feel like that's an unreasonable thing to move up several levels for the ranger.
Yeah.
And then you also have the ability to use that to set up things like flanking and really take advantage of other benefits like Sharpshooter to really pile on the damage. I would also argue that at 7th level, the 8-hour bonding time to find a new beast when it dies is ridiculous.
Yeah.
You're already dealing with a beast that's going to keel over in any straight-up fight. Why are you compounding that with A, finding a new companion, and B, burning the equivalent of a long rest to get something equally as fragile?
So, by the way, you have to take a level of exhaustion because you didn't get to rest because you had to resurrect your companion. It makes no sense at all at any level.
I mean, the benefit that you get at 7th level is already called exceptional training. That suggests that you've had time to learn how animals work, build a bond with your animal companion. Why not take advantage of an ability kind of like the Unearthed Arcana variant of Ranger, where you have access to air and earth spirits, where you can literally just spend a spell slot, an action, and wait a minute for them to just come right back up.
Yeah.
Or, failing that, spend an hour bonding with a new beast instead of 8. Make it something that fits into a short rest instead of a long rest. There's no reason for an 8-hour clock, especially when you're contingent on the DM finding you a beast that makes sense in whatever area of the world you're in.
Like, even if the DM handled it like a summon spell, where you're carrying around 100 gold piece gems, which allow you to summon an animal who feels a bond to you, I'd be more than happy to do a short rest and spend 100 gold to get a companion back. That is way better than 8 hours of not resting.
I mean, shoot, the Find Familiar spell is, I think, 10 gold for a material component. Why make it 10 times more expensive? Just make it a 10 gold offering of valuable herbs or incense or whatever floats your boat. Just bring it in line with what other classes get. It's just absurd that you have to jump through all of these extra hoops as the ranger compared to any other class.
That can basically do the same thing for way easier and way less.
Yeah, familiars, mounts, whatever. It's a spell and maybe a small gold investment away from being able to bring them back. And that kind of leads me into the benefit that I would give the Beastmaster at 11th level, which is basically the ability to, on level up, summon a new animal companion that you could normally bond with. That, with the increase in what you're allowed to do with a Beast Companion's challenge rating that I mentioned earlier, this gives you the opportunity to make sure that your beast is always up to level. You can take the ability basically to put the soul of your Beast Companion into the new body if you want, if you're really attached to keeping that same bond going. Kind of, again, taking advantage of the air and earth spirit thing that Unearthed Arcana has. That way you're basically keeping pace at power level. You have incentive to stick with the class, which base ranger, why would you bother hanging out in that class beyond level 12? It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And then at 15th level, really turn what your beast is capable of doing up to 11. I basically looked at the Beast Conclave Unearthed Arcana class and took most of the cool benefits from that class and stapled them into this level. So basically, give your beast proficiency on all saving throws, an advantage if it can see you. Let it spend its reaction to have damage from a melee attack. Give it the ability to basically showcase all of this training and time you've spent investing, learning how animals work, bonding with your companion. Let that really come through in terms of how you're able to coordinate and perform teamwork. There's no reason whatsoever for your beast to be as weak as it is throughout the course of the base Beastmaster. Let's actually turn that up and give you a reason to stick with that class compared to any of the other ranger variants that are all infinitely more useful than what's been printed.
Yeah. And that makes perfect sense to me, and kind of like we talked about earlier with having feats for animals, that would be the perfect time to throw that in. You're a Beastmaster, so give the animal a few feats, give it a few benefits, show off that training. To me, that is a natural way to fix the class. Unfortunately, right now, you pretty much have to homebrew it with a DM who is willing to do that with you. And if you have the right DM, it might be worth having that conversation, because while it's a little bit of extra work, the idea behind the class is a lot of fun, and there's so much potential, just not how it's written. Even with the Unearthed Arcana changes, it's still underwhelming even after all those extra boosts off the main handbook.
I agree, and I liked your idea from earlier of giving them the ability to take ability score boosts or feats. I think that could be slotted in really well with something like this. Give them the ability to buff their constitution if you want them to be more survivable, or strength or dexterity if you want them to be able to hit more often. The ability to do that in addition to what I've outlined here. Maybe even sneak in the ability to pick a couple of skills that they're naturally proficient in and add their proficiency bonus again. Really get the animal side and the Beastmaster training side worked in. Both of those could be excellent features as well that you could work in. I'd probably do the double proficiency as an addition to the 15th level perks that I outlined earlier, and then give your ability to gain ability score boosts or feats as you take levels in the ranger class at the same points in time, so 4th, 8th, 12th, 16th, and 19th levels.
And all those ideas make the Beastmaster so much more playable than it is right now. In addition to that, you just kind of look at the class, and I think one of the first changes you have to make if you're even considering it is anything that makes common sense, you have to give that to the class. And what I mean by that is a lot of the things they have in here for Beastmaster as benefits. When our Nature Cleric got a bear, I didn't make him use an action to command the bear to attack. I didn't make him reuse a bonus action every round to attack. The bear is part of the group. it knows to attack the enemies once all hell breaks loose. That's not a hard thing to figure out. Flanking bonuses should not be a bonus. That should just make sense. It's part of a pack now because your adventuring group is its pack. You should get the benefits from that. If it's been fighting with your group for a while, it should understand a little bit about what each member of the pack does. And so you just should get those natural benefits, because in a lot of places here, use a bonus action to tell it to sprint, or go choose a new target, or use a bonus action to tell it to attack. You shouldn't have to. In our session, it made sense. It's smart enough. The Nature Cleric had a mental bond. Makes sense. You figure a Beastmaster would have a mental bond. It's not in the book, but you would figure it would have that bond.
Well, failing that, just the training to change its instincts to work with its new pack. Like,
it makes sense.
That just makes sense. It's not even a rule of cool situation at that point. It's just something that makes sense.
Yeah. Animal companions should not have to be stupid because you're following the book rules. It just doesn't make sense. There's so much you could do to make this. Like, when you say Beastmaster, it should be a really cool class. Even if it's a little bit underpowered, it should still be one of those that offers enough flavor that will be fun to try out. And right now, it's not a little underpowered, it's way underpowered. And unless you were doing like hey guys, we're doing 5 weeks and you're only getting up to level 4, I don't know why you would even consider it.
Compared to the Hunter or the Horizon Walker or the Gloomstalker? Yeah, there's no reason.
And while you gave some really good fixes for this class, it wouldn't be one of my videos without considering maybe a Wrecking Ball approach. What else outside of the box, what they gave you, could do this? And I thought about this. There is a great example in classic literature of what I would consider a Beastmaster.
Oh?
That'd be Tarzan.
Yeah.
King of the Jungle.
Yeah,
The man who has special bonds with the animals, you could even say the master of them, who work with him and directs him. It's one of those where, what if instead of the Beastmaster being a super, super poor man's version of a ranger or druid, why not go kind of the barbarian-ish route? Have kind of a wild man who has that special connection where you look less like a wannabe fighter and more like a barbarian with a very unusual pet who fights with you. Because the image of a bear with a barbarian or a barbarian with a pack of wolves, it's not out of line. It makes sense with the bond. It lets you take it in a very different direction of, okay, what if they made a subclass of this where the extra strength or maybe the animal rage is that bond that they both share, giving them some neat ways to kind of work with each other.
Could you imagine divvying out the challenge rating of your beast companion amongst a bunch of wolves and then using pack tactics in combat?
Exactly.
Oh my goodness. that would be dope.
Or the rage takes away maybe the spellcasting abilities while he's in a rage, but it gives a boost to the animal companion who is all about the frenzy at that point. And there's just, like I said, it's an idea that lets you take a very different direction with it, but you could totally see a wild Beastmaster Ranger who was like that. And taking little ideas like that from the other classes could give it the really, really desperate makeover that this class needs at this point. And then, you know what? There is very few parts of the Ranger class that have any reason to go to level 20. And that's a problem with the class in general. Even as much as I like the Ranger class in your campaign, I jumped off the boat at level 12. The moment I could justify going Ranger Rogue, there was just no reason to keep going with the Ranger after about that mid-level point.
Totally fair.
So for Beastmaster, he's called Beastmaster. Let's give him a broken level 20 thing that makes it fun or gives you a reason to stick with it. Because if you're doing a campaign to level 20, half of the bonuses that various classes get are very broken at that stage anyway, and there's a good chance you're facing either a really dangerous boss or even a custom one from your DM. So you know what? Level 20. That's where a Beastmaster should get like the steroid-infused version of a T-Rex. That just gets its own series of attacks and multi-attacks in addition to what the Ranger can do from its back. Just give it something over-the-top fun. At this point, you are the Beastmaster. You are level 20. I don't know if that's in form of you get a pack. Probably not, because most DMs don't want to deal with all the dice rolls, and that's fair. But, you know, if you're telling me that if I stick with this, I get a magically infused T-Rex at level 20, you might get me with that. You might hook me with it. I might be willing to go through being underpowered just to have that moment where I'm riding my T-Rex through the middle of the city.
Especially if you can take away the ability to give it commands via any action and just be like, do this, and it's free, and then you can go into your full attack.
Exactly.
And your T-Rex can go into its full attack. That would be awesome.
Yep, just something like that where it's over the top, it's great, it lives up to the Beastmaster name. You know, bring some fun to a class that really desperately needs it right now. And so, I'm kind of curious, guys, what are your ideas for fixing the class? Whether it's a point-by-point serious look at it, whether it's, hey, Barbarian-infused Beastmaster, that's interesting, I have a better idea. I would like to hear it. At this point, Braden would like to hear it. Brownie would like to hear it. We definitely need to get a much better idea for where the Beastmaster Ranger is. And if you have actually played it, a homebrew version that you enjoyed, we definitely want to hear about that in the comments.
Absolutely. And one other note that I'm going to sneak in here before we end. We're filming this episode in September of 2020, so we're a couple months out from Pasha's Cauldron of Everything. So it's possible there might be fixes in that book, but in the very likely chance that there are not, we wanted to make sure that we clarified that particular point at the end here.
Good point. I mean, there's plenty to hope for, but the Beastmaster Ranger has been nothing but disappointment to this point. So let's get some original ideas on how to fix this, or at least get some homebrew ideas so you can hand this to a DM and build something that's actually worth playing.
And if you get the chance to do that, let us know.
Oh, yeah.
I'm curious to see how some of our ideas stack up in a campaign.
So please hit that like and subscribe button. Follow us for more great videos. Give us those stories. We always want to hear those stories in the comments. And I'm kind of doubly so because there are not going to be many Beastmaster stories out there worth hearing. So if you have one, do not hold out. Share that. And otherwise, until next time, everyone, good gaming.
See you next time.
If you like what you just saw, please support us by hitting that like button and subscribing to our channel for more great gaming content.